No. I'm very happy to be here to discuss the K-12 educational system in Liberia. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Also joining us from Maryland is adjunct professor at the Allentown School System, Mr. Isaac C. Lakpo Zawo. Isaac, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Focus on Africa, a place that I can call one of my second homes. And while I'm being recognized, I want to send a shout out to our boys from the Giving Mountains and the banks of the Farmington River. Our victory just a while ago against Grand Bassa Township. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Isaac. Joining us from Liberia, we have Professor Dr. T. David Cindy, who's joining us from the Kofi Annan Institute of Conflict Resolution. Dr. Cindy, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Thank you.
Especially to talk about education.
Great. Last but not the least is, I sometimes want to call him Reverend Doctor, is Reverend Toby Kang, principal of the Greater Vision High School in New Crewtown for almost 20 years now. Toby, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
We say thank you, Dennis, for this invitation. It's our pleasure to be here tonight.
Thank you, everybody, again. Oh, I'm getting this terrible feedback, and I'm not. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome all of you across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. We are discussing the state of the educational system, specifically kindergarten through 12th grade. And we'll, at this time, go around the room so that each of my guests will give their opening statement and also tell us about your connection with the Liberian school system. Let me start with Mr. Wellington from Liberia. Reverend Kang, your opening statement on your connection with the Liberian school system.
Oh, okay. I'm Toby Kang, born in Liberia and went to school here. And I decided to go in education so that I will help with our brothers and sisters who are coming up so that we help to provide quality education. I joined the school system in Liberia the early 1991. And it was through the effort of our church who saw the need immediately after the first ceasefire to open a school that will cater to the needs of the children who were displaced, who wouldn't have school during the war. And we being young people in the church at the time, they decided to bring us and appeal to us. So we started the school. Something we started was tutorial classes. Now the tutorial classes have grown into a full high school. And since then, we have been providing services. And because I didn't want to actually go into something that will make me that wouldn't have much knowledge about it, I decided to enroll at the University of Liberia, where I graduated from. And since then, I've been providing services to the sector of education in our country.
Thank you, Toby. Let me go to Dr. David Cindy. Dr. Cindy.
Thank you. I'm not very long into education like maybe some of the other people, but first to say that I did all of my elementary and high school education in Liberia, various places in Liberia. I went to teacher training at Zara TTI, where I graduated in 1975 and started teaching in 1976. And since then, all my life, I've been a teacher. and I've been teaching in the Liberian school system. Currently, I joined the University of Liberia in 1983 after completing my studies, and I currently lead the Kofi Annan Institute for Conflict Transformation, where we do education for peace, development, gender, and security.
Thank you, Dr. Cindy. Let me go to Mr. Isaac. I like to call his full name, Isaac C. Lakbo Zawulo. Isaac?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dennis, and thanks to all of my colleagues here on the panel. I'm a Liberian educator. I'm a second-generation teacher. I was raised on the campus of the KRTTI Institute in Kakata, Magidi County. My dad worked there. He rose from being a classroom teacher at KRTTI to being the academic dean. And so my attachment to education in Liberia dates from my childhood, because growing up, I was surrounded by teachers. And even though my dad wanted me to be an engineer, I had to fulfill his dream. I became an engineer. But I was always fascinated by the work that teachers do. And so even at my defense of my master's thesis, all of my professors told me I would do better teaching engineering or mathematics than I would do on the engineering field. So, you know, having danced around, go back to Liberia after graduating, getting my master's, going to Liberia, working for Liberian Water and Sewer Corporation, and at the same time, adjunctly at the University of Liberia, I realized that my first love was education. Presently, I'm involved with teaching in the United States. I've been doing that for about 22 years since I arrived here. I arrived there 22 years ago, and I started teaching 22 years ago. I'm also involved with education in Liberia. Like Dennis indicated earlier, I go to Liberia from time to time to provide workshops for mathematics teachers. And in 2019, I started the Real Academy International School System. And the Real Academy International School System presently runs 2 schools, one in Wana Farm, Town, in the Queens Bay area. It's an elementary school, moving to junior high. We have our first 7th grade class this year. And then we have a high school in Kakata, Magidi County, where we have students from grade 7 to grade 11. So next year we'll have our first graduating class. So that's me and education, and I'm always excited to discuss issues relating to education because that's my life.
Thank you, Mr. Zawulo. Let me go to Jackie, who is playing dual role here. So Jackie, tie in first your connection with schools all over the world. When we were backstage, I said the boom at Cornell. So tell us about your connection with Liberian school system and the importance of today's topic. Break the topic down for our audience to get to know what we're about to talk about today. Jackie.
Wow, that's a huge order. So I'm an alum of the University of Liberia, a student of Dr. Dwamina, teaching assistant in the English department at LU, or University of Liberia as we call it now. I'm also a Fulbright scholar, and I've worked teaching critical argument and reasoning at the State University of New York at Cortland, and then at Montgomery College, Rockville, and Germantown. And now I'm the program manager for the Institute for African Development at Cornell. And most of the things we do development work. We work with partners in Africa to place students for research. We play host to African visitors and African scholars at Cornell, and we have an internship program and a research project program that I supervise. So today we are going to talk about the educational challenges, the educational system in Liberia, keeping in mind that the World Economic Forum estimates that by the year 2030, Africa will have more than a quarter of the world's population under 25, and they will make up 60% of Africa's total population. And that youth bulge has to be educated and has to be skilled. So we are going to discuss today how our country, Liberia, can take advantage of this youth dividend and how we can move forward as a country.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And that leads us to our first question, which is the state of K through 12 education in Liberia. So let's start by asking those in Liberia. Toby is in the school system there. And so let me summarize what Jackie said. The critical factor in the development of Africa is the development of education and skills to prepare the continent forward. It is estimated that by 2050, Africa will have more people of working age, people that will need to be educated, right? So this kind of reinforces the reason why we need to discuss this. So let me start with Reverend Count and tell us a few things we're going to talk about when we say the state of K through 12. We want to talk about the curriculum. We want to talk about access to education, like Toby said from the beginning, that at the time the war was ceasing, students were hanging around, right? So the first thing they needed to do was to have a tutorial which grew into an elementary school and now a high school. So let's begin with the access to education and the whole educational infrastructure that is supporting students in Liberia. Toby, children going to school, what does the access to education in Liberia look like for K through 12?
Well, thank you, Dennis. When I received your invitation, I almost turned you down and didn't want to come. My reason is that actually sometime in Liberia, the political situation is so much giving more credence than even if somebody is speaking about a situation that will bring out the truth and the facts that will benefit the society. People can somehow make them true. And I must be frank and honest with you. As someone who is in Liberia, who is participating and contributing to the educational system of our country, it's somehow, difficult to come out clearly and state some of these things, some of the realities are on the ground. Now you ask the question, are the children in school, are children in Liberia in school? I will say, yes, the schools are open. But to what level is the question? To what level is the question? And when we talk about access to education, we are saying that every child, according to our laws in our country, must have access to education. And maybe realistic, as schools have opened, you can just do a little survey and walk in the community. You will see that those that are in the community, children are not going to school in the community are even more, far more than those are in school. Now, so in such a case, this is just in Monrovia. I'm not talking about the interior part of our country where other factors are into play that may stop our kids from being in school. But here in Monrovia, if you walk in the street, while schools are in section, you will clearly know that those that are not going to school are more than those that are in school currently as we speak.
Right. Thank you. Before I go to Prof. Sandy, Jackie, I see your face kind of cringing when Toby was talking. What's running through your mind?
No, okay. So I agree with the professor that there are not many people of the students in school. But if you look at what the Ministry of Education said, right, the reasons for students not accessing basic education, school fees and related expenses, that's one. Distance to schools and poverty and rural status. Now we heard that Mr. Thomas Fala had said that there should be free education for higher education. But I believe and I feel very strongly that we should primary education is free, but we have to work with the government to make it so that our primary education, which is the foundation You know, it teaches cognitive skills, it teaches socialization, teamwork, you know, it builds the foundation. We need, look, uneducated young kids of today will be the uneducated adults of tomorrow. If we're saying that we have this youthful bulge, that we have to have them trained, educated, given skills to be able to confront the challenges and to move Africa forward, we have to invest in primary education. The Liberian budget, it's above some of the other African countries, but yet it's not up to par of where it should be. So I think that if we're talking about putting money, allocating money, money should be allocated to the early childhood education, or to K through 12. And so I was looking at the I was looking at the public schools, the early childhood education. We have 2,425 early childhood centers. But the private, we have 1,555. Then we have the religious or the faith-based, 793. And then we have the community, 307. So we have 5,080 early childhood education institutions in Liberia. Surely these need to be supported so that our young kids can be able to be fully trained, so that they can move up on the educational ladder. So I agree with Prof. Toby. I was just kind of like listening when he was speaking.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie. Let me go to Dr. Cindy. You are in Monrovia as well, and you probably see what I just want your input on the whole issue of access. You've taught from elementary, since then now you are at the university, you are at the graduate school. In fact, you get the product from the high school and the graduate school. They are the one that you are teaching currently. But let's talk about access from your perspective. Yeah, you can unmute yourself, Prof. Cindy.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. I was just saying that no matter where I find myself now, I have never detached myself from primary education, because I spent years at ZRTTI specializing in primary education. And I came from there. I think that's one of the most lucrative qualifications I really feel very proud of, because it has built the foundation for many of the things I've done afterward. Especially if you think about the kind of curriculum for childhood education, learning synergies for children, the psychology, child psychology in learning. I mean, these are things that have become a part of me, because those things is a matter of just, like you call, stretching them on the upper level when you deal with even adults, especially in tertiary education and so forth. And that brings me to the point of the curriculum that we have in our primary education system. I think our curriculum in the primary education is very flawed, and we need to be able to overhaul this. Under the current dispensation of government, I was in one forum where the Minister of Education, for instance, wanted to reintroduce civic education. You know, in those days, we used to do civics, and I did civics as far as third, fourth, fifth grades. And they talk about introducing civics. So his major concern was he wanted to get $60 million to get civics books into Liberian schools all over the country and all of that. And I said to him, Mr. Minister, that is well and great. Do you have competent teachers who will teach when the civics book arrive in the schools? Because it's one thing to have all the great books, but our teacher training needs serious attention, especially since they got affected by the Civil War. Then you come to the general curriculum. we still have our curriculum producing parrots in elementary school. A, B, B, C, C, 1, 1, 2, 2. And those children will learn, will recite the 1, 2, 3 from 1 to 10. And you point at 3 and you ask them, what is this? They don't know it. They recite the ABC from A to Z, and you point at D and they don't know it. So this kind of education, once that is the foundation we are putting under the feet of our children, I'm afraid we are building such a weak foundation, and the upper levels are not going to be any different. You have at the university level where teachers are saying to students, produce exactly what I gave you on a test. Students are not allowed to think. Students are not allowed to be creative. This is a flaw in our complete education curriculum, and we need to do something about it. Then you talk about infrastructure. I didn't get her permission, so I won't mention her name, but a colleague, a senior colleague of mine, very experienced educator, one of the best educators in this country. And I work on a project to try to establish a sister school relationship, and I'm talking primary school here, in a village in Bapolu. When we got there, the students, the school was running from kindergarten to 6th grade with 2 teachers. Kindergarten to 6th grade with 2 teachers. When we got there, the other teacher had gone to Monrovia to chase their salary, which had not come for the last 3 months. The students were sitting on breaking bricks, and the teacher was using charcoal to write on a piece of cartoon. This was the education system in that school. But the district representative for that district met us when he was driving a 73,000 4x4 Jeep. And we said 10,000 could educate these children and give them a feature. 10,000, that's all they need. To build the infrastructure, to give them impetus, to give them a learning environment that will enhance their learning. Infrastructure.
Like to say,
yeah.
You are. I'm seeing comments here. People are in tears as you talk. So let's slow down and take it bit by bit. You are covering so much ground that I can't even imagine what you're talking about. I can't imagine, but I start to think, that okay, is it that bad? So we'll come back to that.
And that's what I said to you. This is my life. What education has been my life. From 1976, I stood in classroom. I have never done anything else with my life but educate. From 1976, you do the arithmetic, you can. I'm not going to tell you how many years.
Yeah.
But that's been my life.
So you touch on, I want to go to Prof. Zavlo. He's been going back. So you touch on access, you touch on.
I didn't finish.
We will come back to you because it's too, you lay it on all right. Points that we'll come back to you.
Okay.
So we can take them piece by piece: curriculum, access, the infrastructure, teachers' competencies, or the instruction, and what have you. Prof. Zavlo, where do you pick from?
Well, I'll pick up first of all to say, whilst my colleagues see those things so far that have been cataloged here today as challenges, I see them as opportunities. I see them as opportunity for us educators to be able to join hands and address some of those inequities, some of the challenges, some of the things that people are facing. Mr. Syed listed, she talked about several things that several issues with our schools, and those are facts. And Dr. Sandy also spoke on those things. But in addition to those things, I also want to talk about the opportunities in terms of, they talk about infrastructure. But I will talk about infrastructure in terms of how certain gender, the females, are being disadvantaged by the way our schools are constructed. Like you indicated earlier, I own 2 schools in Liberia. Last week, there was one situation we had with a female student. I will not go into details of some of the things that she was facing there. When I was in the process of establishing the school, one of the things I tried to do was to make sure there was gender balance in my staff, so that girls would feel comfortable in going to school. It's difficult to do in Liberia. And the guys who I was working with, they were not understanding why I wanted to see some gender balance. But last week, they experienced why it was important to have it. And that's an issue that has opportunities for improvement in Liberia. We need to improve the facilities at our school. We need to ensure that the teaching staff is inviting so that women, girls will be encouraged to go into school and stay in school. We have to provide the laboratory facilities in those schools so that I will be able to cater to some of the needs of women, so that will make them want to stay in school throughout the month and not stay away from school at a certain time of the month. But I want to differ a little bit with my colleagues so far when it comes to the curriculum. The curriculum may not necessarily be the best, but at least it lays the basic foundation on which we can build on. I agree that we need to improve your competency, but the curriculum we have is not that archaic as it has been proffered yet. There was a 2012 revision, 2011-2012 revision to our curriculum. Presently, I think they have just completed the new revision to the curriculum, something that I don't even know many schools haven't even received yet. I happen to have access to those things. And so they have made tremendous progress in terms of the curriculum. In fact, they are going to the extent, I think, I don't know who I spoke with, but they are going to the extent to provide some scripted curriculum materials, because aware of the fact that some of the teachers are not competent. You have about 39% of the teachers teaching in primary schools are not qualified, or 29% of the teachers teaching in primary schools are not qualified, up to 39% of the teachers teaching at the secondary levels are not qualified, or even more. So we have challenges with implementing the curriculum. I don't think the curriculum is that terrible that it cannot be utilized, to improve education in our country.
Right.
There have been a lot of progress in that direction. The only concern I will have with the curriculum is that I don't usually see an alignment of our curriculum with our national economic agenda, with the human resources inventory in the country, and the direction, the purpose, philosophy, and meaning of Liberian education. Those are concerns that I have, but I think we've made tremendous progress in that area. There have been progress in the early childhood education area, something that was ignored for so many years. But now it has begun to achieve some attention. So let me stop there, give my colleagues a chance to come in.
Yeah, let me go to Reverend Kaon on those issues. And Prof. Sandy, before we get to you, Mr. Khan, we talk about the infrastructure. Take, for instance, something like WASH, water, sanitation, health, hygiene, all make up the school infrastructure. Talk to me. You said something about access. You can also comment on the curriculum and also the educational infrastructure and, in fact, instruction.
Okay, thank you. I want to start off with first the issue of curriculum. I didn't go that far because the question was concerning access to education. Now, as it relates to curriculum, like my last colleague who spoke said, there has been a lot of revision in our current curriculum in all of the sectors of education in Liberia. So the issue of curriculum is a little bit, not too serious here in our country. But as it relates to infrastructure, I want to let you know that just quite recently, our president visited some of the public schools here, right here in the city. And then you will get to know that what he saw was not pleasant right here in Morocco. Can you imagine that in the classroom, the ceiling of the room is falling, and then students are there? If I tell you where I live, right in Brewerville, some of the schools, if you go there, then you wonder we are serious about education in this country. And I just don't want to really most of the time to comment on this, because sometimes you can be taken out of context, and particularly when you are still in the system working, it's somehow difficult to mention these kind of things. But these are great challenges that we have. Infrastructure, some of the school buildings, when you see them, I just speaking about Monrovia where I live. I don't talk about the interior. I don't talk about other parts of our country. If you come to Monrovia and you visit some of the schools, you got to know that the buildings are not conducive for learning at all. No chairs in the classroom and all of those. As it relates to watch and or what we call sanitation, of course, the NGOs that came in during the war have tried their best to do construction of these facilities in our various schools. But after the NGO, what has happened? Those facilities are not being maintained. They are not being maintained. And in our modern time, Dennis, to be frank with you, to build a is difficult. And given the number of students using that one toilet, to me, is not conducive for the health of the students. So these are challenges that we have. There are many, but what we are saying is that, like Prof. Sandy was saying, he was wanting to just pull the bull by horn and just give you the whole list. Well, I want to tell you that when you come to Liberia, when you come here, you will see exactly what we are talking about. And one of the things that we see in our education system that people do is the system is being used most of the time by politicians. They talk about it so much when they are coming to power, but surprisingly, when they get to power, it's like it's happening what they said that they were going to do in the system. So we have these challenges here in Liberia, and they are facts. They are here. It's our hope that those who have the authority over us will see these realities and help our people.
Thank you, Toby. Let me go to Prof. Sandy to finish. Prof. Sandy, I didn't let you finish, but so go ahead and finish, and then we'll have Jackie to come in as well.
Okay. But I must say I'm glad that I was paused, because I'm very interested in some of the inputs. For instance, Prof. Zaulo and Prof. Kong have made. I think these are very critical areas that they have mentioned, and especially coming from their own personal experiences. And that's what I think makes this very rich discussion, when people speak from their personal experiences. I'll go back to the issue of the curriculum. We have, as it were, on the flat scale, a curriculum. First, that curriculum is not available to many of the schools in this country. That is a living reality. There are a large percentage, and I have not done a complete statistics of this for this program, so I can't be very specific, but there are a large percentage of our schools that do not have the approved curriculum of the Ministry of Education. And so a lot of them are doing things their own way. That's one side. Two, if I were to be part of the review of the curriculum in our primary school today, I will not be teaching our, what you call our K1, K2. I will not be teaching them spelling. I will not be teaching them, I mean, if these children can do the basic arithmetics, if they can do the basic reading, phonics, and they pick that up strongly, When they come to the upper levels, they will read, they will understand, they will be able to comprehend and act on what they have read. You have students going through to university who are just functionally literate. They read and don't understand what they are reading because that formative stage, the curriculum in those formative stage does not teach students how to read and comprehend. And that's something we need to really emphasize in our primary levels. I'm glad Prof. Kong talked about the sanitary. I think Prof. Zaul also mentioned about this. The one basic reason for the large percentage of girls' attrition from school is sanitary situation. If a girl comes to school and there isn't adequate sanitary situation, environment, if a boy came to school and there wasn't a toilet and he got germ and he messed himself up, that boy goes home, they claim him up, the next day he's back in school. If that happened to a girl, no matter how small that girl child is, you'll find it very difficult to get her back in that school. How many of our schools have toilets? And how many of those toilets are able to maintain the students that are there? Two, you talk about gender ratio. Somebody, I think it was, I'm not sure who mentioned it, but this is very important. Check our entire education system. Find out how many female teachers we have in the sciences. So by the time girls start coming to the 5th, 6th, 7th, and junior high levels, you have a situation where science, for some reason, becomes intimidating. And so their whole reliance is either on their male counterparts or the male teachers. And that has been one of the major reasons for the advantages that are taken of our female students. I don't want to go into the details of that, I'm sure you know. Okay. But you also talk about generally the national support for education. Somebody has mentioned, yes, I think Jackie is very good at these statistics. She does those research very well. I always like to be on these programs with her because she lists all the background statistics. Yes, nationally, when you look at the structure of our budget, we do look like we are doing better because by percentage of what we are putting in our education budget, we may be better than some African countries. The question is, how is that little we are putting in being utilized and where is it being utilized? Again, if you go to some of the schools, I think Kong mentioned the visit of the president recently in some schools and the dissatisfaction. The former president, Manasseh, to call our education a mess. These are realities not for politicians. Education today has to be captured by educators. People have gone into education as a way of livelihood, as a way of what for do. Now, those of us who have education as our life, our career, our upbringing, we feel very jealous about this, but we are helpless. If we really want to strengthen our education system, what is wrong? For instance, on average, in this country, we produce at least 5,000 college graduates every year in all the community colleges, University of Liberia, all the subsidiary colleges. Put all together, we are producing at least 5,000 college graduates every year. In 5 years, that's 25,000. Why are we still very, very low in sustaining the manpower needs of this country? Why is there such huge unemployment? Because we are not educating in the areas of our greatest needs.
Wow.
But if we have these people, let's just, for argument's sake, get these 5,000 people and say 1 year service in education. at least you would have up to 3,000 college graduates ending up in our education system every year. If nothing else, they are better than high school dropouts who are teaching in some of the high schools that we have. If nothing else. So these are things that we don't need a rocket scientist to come and help us with. These are things we just need to put our act together. Then you talk about this whole thing of female recruitment, especially in our sciences. For instance, at the whole University of Liberia, we have one female mathematics teacher in the whole University of Liberia, and I don't know of any other university in the whole country. If anyone knows, please educate me. She got retired.
Wow.
So now we have no female mathematics teacher in our entire university system. And these are things, what are we doing to encourage our female, especially in our core sciences? Because this is where a lot of our females are being taken advantage of by their male counterpart or predator male teachers. So these are just few of the pointers, and I can go into some of the details of this as we go along. But let me stop here and give chance to others to make some comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And let me bring in Jackie. But Jackie, before you come in, I want to show the slides and the statistics that Prof. Cindy was crediting you for. So yeah. So in the back room, let's show some slides here. So let's talk some numbers here so that, and then Jackie will tie it up and put it in perspective. Okay. That's the African median ages. Jackie, you can pick it up from there.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. So first, Prof. Cindy said I like to talk with statistics. So let me just give you some. There's a total of 23,687 toilets, but only 56% are functional. Of the 23,687, girls are allotted 24.5% and boys 75.6%. So that's just something that I think I should throw out there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the curriculum because Prof. Cindy mentioned it. And the curriculum is when you go on the Ministry of Education website, you can get it because for the past week I've been going through this curriculum, highlighting things, and I wanted to throw some light on the curriculum. They from grade 1 through 6. It deals with basic education, math, reading, science, but it also deals with religious and moral education. The religious and moral education curriculum leaves a lot to be desired. For example, there's a lot of emphasis on the Bible. So I guess when they hear religious, it's just the Bible and the Quran and the 10 Commandments. And so when you look at grade, I went through, and when you look at grade 1, they're teaching about the Bible, and then you go to grade 5. Grade 5 talks about the 10 Commandments and the Quran, places of worship, and then you go to grade, I think it's 5th grade. Also talk about the types of death, hell, punishment. It's so heavily focusing on this religious side. It's about field trips, right? And the field trip is to go to the mosque or to the church in grade 8, right? Then you see they're talking about sexual sin and the effects on a society. This is still the religious and moral aspect. And then they talk about negative sexual habits, the negative effects of sexual sin. But in 10th to 12th grade, I don't see anything about sexual education. Now, if you remember, in the roadmap, the gender roadmap that the president brought out, it says one of those directives is to teach education, sexual education in the classroom. I know that this curriculum came out before that, but the draft education, this new curriculum, leaves a lot to be desired. For instance, there's so much emphasis on negativity, but from grade 1 to 6, there's nothing being taught about bad touching. You know, there are some places that people are not supposed to touch you. There's nothing to say, run and tell somebody when somebody touches you below your waist or on your breast. Nothing. You know, it focuses on write a term paper on, there's one about writing a research paper on tithe and offering, why people should tithe, right? Why not do a research paper on teenage pregnancies, types of birth control, things like that? So in a way, the curriculum is educating our young people, boys and girls, about good touching, bad touching, you know. So the curriculum has a lot to be desired. In 10th to 12th grade, there is more focus on zoology and botany. There's no religious and moral subject from 10th to 12th grade. So all it talks about is botany and zoology and HIV, but HIV in the biological sense, and not HIV that you get, talk about health punishment and things like that. But you know, I was listening to the professor talk about the infrastructure, the health infrastructure, about how the NGOs came, they build wells and they build things for the young for the schools. You know, and some of them are not functional because the NGO left. We don't learn in silos. You know, people think that you get educated in school and then you leave and you go in the real world. The real world is an education in itself. If you're teaching civics and you're trying to put in patriotism, love for country, what shows love more than for you to say to your students and your teacher, you know what, let's do a project. Let's build a bathroom. Let's build a hand pump. Because believe me, those things translate. So when you're walking and you throw a piece of paper on the ground, because of what you know, that this is my country and I want to help it, I'm not going to wait. How is it that we would have outsiders come and build the most basic thing, bathrooms? Bathrooms. I find it totally disgraceful that you have NGOs coming to build bathrooms. And I would throw this in for my professors here. We have just a research project. It's a short, but we have student grant projects. And so this student walked into my office and he said, you know, we want to build these things where you keep water in Uganda. You know, it comes from the ceiling, from the roof, it goes into this big thing. And he showed it to me. So you take these water bottles that you drink out of and you fill it with sand and they become like the steroid, right? And you build this whole place. And for 10,000, the entire school, I have pictures where the kids build this thing. All they did was to show it. And then he wrote me later on and he said, oh, I'm no longer there. But now they're building bathrooms. So what I'm saying is that when you talk about education, education educates the entire man, the entire person. You know, it is not saying I am going to be dependent on somebody else to find a place where I can go to pee or something. You know, no. I would say NGOs come in and help you with books and things, but this is the most basic. So I would say that education doesn't come in silos. You have to teach civic education, and civic education comes with volunteering for your country. So it's not everything that the government is going to provide. Parents also have to get involved in these things. You know, if you look at the budget, Dennis, just one before I leave. I mean, before there was $1 million allotted for cheer. $1 million for chairs by local furniture makers to build for the schools. But that was in 2016 budget. It's no longer there, you know? So why would a carpenter not say, you know, my kids go to this school, I will volunteer. We will do like maybe 10 chairs. You must take pride in where you learn, you know? So I'm not pushing it on the parents, but I'm saying they must have some responsibility in education as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And Jackie, you stressed important points. So, Toby, you want to come in?
Yes, I just say sorry. I gotta go off because I have some clinical problem on my side. But thank God I'm back. And exactly she has said that, and that's how it is. Civic education is very much important. And sometimes even some of these facilities I was talking by the students themselves, with the idea that when they are destroyed, the government is going to build them. I was talking about the school buildings and infrastructure and some of the things that we have in the school, like toilets and what have you. And so that's what I said before I went off. But I meant all just, you know, outlining some of those things and teaching our kids to say that they themselves should exercise responsibility to maintain these things. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, Prof. Zablo, I see you talking there. You can go ahead, Mr. Zablo. Let's still keeping the conversation now. Go ahead. Your point.
Yeah, let me come in. Yeah, you know, when I listen to Jackie, it's as if we've spoken. Some of the things she talked about, even with the civics education, and yes, we're already established here. The curriculum, I look at it as the minimum standards. So all schools, all school administrators and teachers can go above that. And the curriculum can be practicalized. It doesn't only have to be espoused in theory. See, what I had some concerns with what Jackie was leading when it came to the religious and moral education, but I will leave that because for now, I think she touched on so many points that are very important. It's good to teach civics in our schools, but when the civics is just about teaching about the branches of government and how government works, it is not about educating students about the importance of being an informed citizen and a member in a participatory democracy, then it loses its power. It loses its intent. And that's what she was talking about. And Jackie, I had the same situation. My students at my high school decided to fix just exactly what you are talking about. Water barrels for safe drinking water for my students and see if they could export it to Liberia. What I told them was, I don't think that's what I want. What I want is for you to connect with them, teach them how to do it so they can be able to do it for themselves. And then I take them to a second thing that happened on Friday. So my high school in Kakata had the orientation program. And prior to the orientation, I got information that the students were stealing the light bulbs. And the principal was furious. He was thinking about taking some strong disciplinary actions against the students. And so I was supposed to address the students on that day. And that's what I did. I spoke to them about the importance of the building, the infrastructure, the place they call school, and their responsibility to school. It was interactive. I engaged them, you know, and placed the burden on them to understand it's okay. I mean, you can go ahead and steal the light bulbs, but what preparation are you giving yourself for the future? Because if you can steal light bulbs today, you'll be the corrupt government official that you are criticizing today. So we have to find a way to practicalize all of these things that we talk about. So it's not just about the civics education. It's not even about the religious and moral education thing, but it's more about how can we make it practical. And so that's why I don't have too much problem with the curriculum. I think they've made tremendous efforts in bringing it to the level it is. When I grew up in school in Liberia, we didn't have religious and moral education. We took Bible. If you went to a Catholic school, you learned about catechism. If you went to some other school, you learned about some doctrine from the Lutheran Church or from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So we've made progress in that direction. Are there still opportunities to improve? Yes, we can definitely improve on those things. But again, one last thing that causes some of these problems is the lack of effective monitoring mechanism for schools. So you have that curriculum and you leave it with the school. But the way schools operate in Liberia is that to open a school, you go to the Ministry of Education, you get some paperwork, you complete the paperwork. The most important part of the Ministry of Education is concerned about is you paying that $250 or what, $210. That's the most important part. They come there, they barely look at it. All they want to see if you have that money to pay, you pay the money, and then you become a registered school. And nobody goes back to check on what you are doing there anymore. It's the CEO, DO, whenever he comes in, he's looking for $5 or $10. And that's it. So schools are not being monitored, to show that they are effective. And, it has to be, because then we can be able to arrest the situations of latrines and lavatories at these schools, because we should not be expecting people to come from outside to build those things for us. Our students can engage those things as community projects. That's why at Real Academy in Monrovia Elementary School, we have built in our schedule 1 class period a day for projects. Our students are supposed to identify, each student is supposed to identify a community engagement. And at the end of the school year, the students will report on their project. At the Giddings Polytechnic Academy, which is a part of the Real Academy International School, each student must engage in a project. So we have it built in our schedule, because that's the whole thing about what education should be about. Yeah. It should be about making people informed and productive citizens in our democracy, and not just memorizing facts.
Thank you, Mr. Zawule. I will go to Dr. Cindy to make a comment, and then we can go to some comments here. But I want to also mention that this whole idea of education, right? We are not going to school just to memorize. School identify the problem that is in our community. That's the problem we are trying to solve. That's why we go to school. When I was in school in Liberia, and I look back today, you see that there is a disconnect. So I come from a village. If I went to school and I'm educated, I have no place in that village, because the education that I learned did not connect me, did not make me even useful in my village. I don't even know the name of the trees that are there and the nutritional values of the food that I was born eating. So education is there's a disconnect. And so when we are educated now, we have to move out of our communities. We have to move out of ourselves to become educated. So if you are educated and you can still dance the tokla, then your education is questioned. Prof. Cindy, let's get your input, and then we go to our comments. Our viewers are making some comments here.
Right. My son would be really interested in hearing some of those comments. But just a couple of things. And again, I want to thank Jackie. She's really spot on everything she said here. And Jackie, I just want to thank you for the way you are meticulous and you gather those data. It really, really helps to enlighten any conversation and any forum like this nature. Somebody said their experience about going to school. I went to school in the village. When we were going to school, we had no janitors. There was, every last Friday of the month was general cleaning. So the boys, we carry cutlasses and hose. The girls carry brooms and buckets. And we cleaned the school campus completely. And in between classes or whatever, we did that. There were no janitors in the school, but the school was kept clean, very clean. When I did my first teaching, I was assigned to a school in Bapa in Nimba County. And I tell you, the principal I met, peace be to his ashes, Mr. Moses Ba, a great educator. That man opened my eyes to the potential a school can have. And you can imagine, just coming out of teacher training, I was fresh and green. But he put a handle on me. That man had a school project. The school had over 40 acres of plantation, cocoa, plantain, and you name it. So that school has such a great source of income that school did not wait for anybody to do the things that were necessary for enhancing its productive life. If that school wanted things, the school had its own means. I know there are schools in Monrovia today that may not have that luxury, but there are still alternative ways of making that happen. I teach community development today at the Kofi Annan Institute. Of the 16 weeks of the semester, my students are in class for 4 weeks. The first 3 weeks is the theory, the fundamentals of community development and all of that. And I break them up into groups and I spread them to various communities around Monrovia. So New Wine, Slipway, Fendel, Rehe community, and you name it. And they are spending 12 weeks with the challenge to effect a change in those communities. When those students come back, they are different people. And I'm talking here for the kind of clientele we have as students. Some of them are legislators, some of them are cabinet ministers, some of them are military officers, some of them are UN officials. But when they come from that, going underneath the skin of people at the community level, they have a different perspective. And I think that's very helpful to open up. Also, when we went to school, there used to be this thing called the 4-H Club. Those are the places some of us really got our, you call it our, I mean, that's where we were pieced together. The 4-H Club. I think everyone, but I'm sure many of you might have heard about 4-H Club. I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to render service, my health to better living, my hands to render service for my club, my community, and my country. When you really apply those principles, students coming out of that will be different, I'm telling you. Will be different.
Prof. So, I never heard of the 4-H Club.
Oh, really? Well, we had that. And one of the things we had was a school garden as our project. We had other people who had different things. But everyone contributed something that would be beneficial to the club, the community, and the country at large. First, by being a better citizen, you were contributing to the country. Because if you had a heart that was really creating loyalty and service, you were contributing to the country.
Thank you.
What I'm saying is today we still have these opportunities. And that's where I go back to our teacher training institution. The TTIs, they need to buckle up. Unfortunately, we are going to continue to remain in this no money syndrome. So if we are not producing the right teachers, we don't expect to have the right students. We don't expect to have the adequate people coming into community life. We don't expect to have the right people coming into national service. We don't expect to have the right people going into international work. And the chain continues. My elementary school principal said to me, and I never forget, this is where I will end. He who rules must first obey. Today, we have people who want to rule, who want to administer, but they did not give an opportunity to themselves to be formed, to be obedient, to be service-oriented. So they sit on top of the pie, and all they want to do is eat out of the pie and nothing to contribute. Thank you.
Jackie, you wanted to inject something before we go to our comments?
No, I was only saying that that the students, I mean, with the 4-H year, there are a lot of things that they can do outside. We even, I guess the thing is that for the the Ministry of Education to also have these extracurricular, lists that people can do, so it doesn't have to just be 4-H. It be something, one of the things that's very interesting that a lot of people don't know is that the sea turtles, right? The sea turtles migrate. And do you know that Liberia is one of the few countries in along the coast that the sea turtles come? And we have a whole project that we're doing on sea turtles, because people kill the sea turtles, they eat the sea turtles. The fascinating thing about the sea turtles is that when the sea turtles, when they're born, talk about a mystic connection, Dennis, they travel millions of miles, right? They go to Puerto Rico, wherever. They always come back to where they were born to give birth. Isn't that something? People don't know why. But when these sea turtles come and give birth and they leave, these eggs are protected. So Ghana has built a whole tourism industry around these sea turtles that people come, they protect them at night. If people want to steal the eggs, they protect the eggs. And then when the eggs are hatched, they go. But they do have this in Liberia. And I found that online and I contacted the people and I'm trying to get my interns to go to Libasa and work with these young German students and Liberian students who are doing it. That could be a field trip. That's conservation right there, So if the government or get a list together and say, look, if you're studying conservation, this is what you must learn, So those things need to be put in place. Yeah, but yeah, we can go to the comments now.
And that's the connectedness of the school, connecting the school with the community or with our own culture.
Yes.
They are not in silos, they are linked. The purpose to go to school is to be able to impact our society. So if we are trained only to work in Germany or somewhere else, then the reason for our education is meaningless.
But then it's the curriculum does not prohibit or inhibit the schools from making those connections.
Definitely.
That's what I talk about, effective monitoring mechanism. And you've made a very important comment right now. You talk about training. We need to train the school administrators. We need to train the teachers to see education differently. And that's our issue there. Because my school is doing it, doing some of these things you are talking about. Other schools are not doing it. So we need to just train our people to be able to do it.
Mr. Pokpa, who's commonly known as Cutting Edge, says this is a very important topic. Dr. Cindy, you got some love here from Tavina Cole. Say hi to Dr. Cindy. Good to see you. We have Afro watching us from Florida. Also, Cutting Edge, the challenges include poor learning outcomes, overage enrollment, a huge number of out-of-school children, wasted government resources because of ghost teachers and unskilled teachers, and many unqualified teachers. So I will go through the comments. Please jot it down at the end. Toby, I want you to go first and react to those comments. John Bernard, I work in the ED tech space in San Francisco. I have reached out to the Ministry of Education to offer access to remote learning for K-12, but to no avail. Tavina Ko said, Dr. Cindy, when you were explaining, she's in tears. Cotton Edge said, thanks for killing the cat with water. The facts of total failures in upper classes are contingent on limited or no foundation at the primary level.
Yes.
For example, out of 25,000 examinees that sat the UL entrance exam in 2013, all 25,000 candidates failed in the UL exam. This is due to very vulnerable primary and secondary system. And Mr. Kangwa and Dr. Cindy, you are there. You can offer some of your thoughts on that. Sam Waller said, what was the panel's position on the introduction of Bridge International Academic arrangement in Liberia when this was being planned and implemented, and the outcomes? Let me read a few more comments. Mohammed Siadu Dukle, so sad. Did you let those teachers who accepted Lone Star Umbrella as bribes for grades know then that their actions were wrong? Sam Wallow again. The more you continue to unintentionally encourage successive governments to abdicate their responsibility to building and maintaining infrastructure for education, such as building and maintaining schools and sanitation by asking parents or NGO to do it, the more government will continue to divert funds from education towards waste and abuse. Keep holding government accountable for this via the legislature so that a capture in the budget, including teacher training. And last comment here. You can't successfully do anything in Liberia if you are not there. I don't know what that means, that you have to be there to do it. From David Cindy, can I have your contact details? Love your story about your community development students. That's Mohammed Sadia Dukle joining us from Australia. Those are the comments. Let me start with you, Mr. Khan. You can pick any one of them and give your feedback.
Well, I just want to look at the one that talks about the challenges that concerning poor learning outcomes and low average enrollment. And like exactly what we said, we mentioned those are the outcomes of any poor system in education. And our assessment here tonight is not to downgrade and play down everything. But what we are saying, why these challenges are still there, there are institutions that are in Liberia, some from the private sector that are making headways, helping the government to improve the system. But what we are saying is, let us recognize these challenges and let the government that has the authority in our country do the right thing to address these things. Because the few private institutions like mine, Greater Vision Christian School, that is helping to help the government to provide this quality education, may not be able to cover the entire country. There are other students are in the leeward counties, in leeward country, part of the country that are not having this kind of education that we are trying to provide. And so what we are doing is we want to do is to call on government to see reason to address these challenges so that our country will be better. Because without education, there will be no concrete development in our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Education is the key. Let me add a few more comments before you come in. Prof. Cindy, we learn more about the West African, about the West in Liberian schools. I can't name all the districts in NIMBA or know all the states in the US, European countries, and their cities. Jerome Gaiman, whose show is coming on next at 6 o'clock, said the 4-H at home empower kids through inspirational hands-on learning experiences, find educational, participate in school programs and 4-H club. Veronica Lewis, Prof, you are so right. It all depends on the teacher's love for teaching. Prof. Cindy, let's get your feedback on the comments.
Okay, I mean, as you know, I cannot comment on everything, but I pick up a few.
Yeah.
First, I'd like to go back to this comment that if we were to capture, because, you know, college education in this country, comparatively, is still cheaper than many other places around the world. And whether we like it or not, somebody is paying for, you know, the gap. For instance, I'm a university professor, earning less than $1,000 a month. It means for people to have college education, I'm making an extreme sacrifice. So those people who are getting that education, they should be required to give something back to their society. If we were to capture, like I said, 5,000 college educations every year, graduating, just an average. If we were to capture that,
Prof. Sandy, yeah. Sorry, I don't want us to gloss over this. You said teaching on the, and I don't want to kind of pinpoint this too much, teaching at the graduate level, you make less than $1,000 a month. I heard that.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. That, I see why people are leaving to go to the legislature to become a lawmaker, because you make what?
Yeah, well, I would not go there. I will remain a teacher. I may have done it all this time. I will continue doing that until I lay my casket. Yeah. But here's the point. If we were to get the products of that and say to them, if it's for a year, can you contribute to education? At least in some places, they call it national service. I mean, there are various nomenclatures people have for it. But the point would be, if you had at least 3,000 college graduates in our classrooms, all I'm saying is they will be better than the high school dropouts that we have in those classrooms.
That's profound.
So that's at least a step. Even if we're to give them a minimum stipend to facilitate this, but this is something, this is a low-hanging fruit that government should really think about harvesting. The other thing is, somebody mentioned about the breach. I tell you, when breach was introduced in this country during Madam Salih's administration, I circulated their past experiences in Uganda and other places, and the massive disaster that the breach partnership have had in those countries. I want everyone in the university email network that this was a disaster for this country. The current Minister of Education was then Vice President for Administration. But yet, he went into the partnership with Breach. Why? I'm yet to know. I will leave that at that. Somebody wants my contact details. Dennis, you are free to share my contact details with the person asking this. My contacts are never secret. I mean, I'm a public servant. My contact is available, so please feel free to share with the persons. I don't have a direct link with them. Thank you.
Thank you. And Prof. Zawlo, before you come in the comment, to give your feedback on the comments, I want to add something there, something that I've advocated for, and Prof. Cindy mentioned that those who've been taught, who people like Prof. Cindy sacrifices to teach at the rate that he talked about, I am like, wow. What can they give back? Every time the Alumni Association, other organizations here in the diaspora, when we always offer scholarship, right? Or grant. And I always told them, why can't we have something like, so these people that we are giving the money can give something back? Why can't we go there, at least if they can go in their own communities and tutor some high school or go to the high schools and offer some free services? And then we require the registrar in that school to at least jot down their hours every time they come there. Instead of just giving scholarship, free, nobody's giving anything back. And you are part of some of those organizations, including you, Prof. Zawlo. You're coming.
I'm not too sure the present Minister of Education was the one that entered into that agreement with Breach International. I think the Breach International agreement predates his successor to the Ministry of Education. Am I correct?
I'm saying this was Madam Salih's administration when Breach entered this country.
Yeah.
But we did share the disaster from their experience from other countries.
Mm-hmm.
The present Minister of Education was at the university and he got this communication.
All right.
So, but he signed a contract with Breach because when they came in, they had to have a new whatever status with Breach. So they had to have a new arrangement. And okay. He was part of signing that.
Yeah, I was just corrected because I know that some of us here, we also fought Breach International from the internationally. We went so many places with Breach. I personally was heading the Coalition of Liberian Educators. And we even contacted the prominent human rights lawyer, Samuel Kofi Woods, so as to take Breach to court. So I know that there were certain aspects of that agreement that Minister Soni could not have necessarily done anything different with. But let's leave that. Look, I wanted to also touch on one thing that I know people have been using to beat on Liberian children, about the 25,000 students who failed the University of Liberia entrance examination. I think we should be getting to the University of Liberia to understand what is the University of Liberia testing. The University of Liberia calls the test it gives, it calls it entrance and placement exams. It uses it only for entrance. That's all. Professor Sandy, am I correct? That's all they do. You pass the test and you can come and go to any college you want to go to, right?
It's a little more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry I didn't comment on that when I had the opportunity. But briefly, just to say, what has been happening at the UL entrance and placement was that a large number of people were failing, but they were using what they call this scaling.
Yeah.
No, scaling. So if 3,000, 5,000 people made 15%, for instance, in mathematics, that became the average score. And so all those who made 15% were admitted. But we were just taking a lot of bad apples into the university, and it was creating the greatest suffering for the instructors who had to teach these people and bring them up to that level. And that's why people were leaving the university and were basic, functionally literate and not able to represent the university education. It was because of the caliber of people that were being taken. So that particular year, the university stood their ground and said, we will take those who pass. And so the scale was removed and the reality came out. But this is what it had been for years. It had been covered up over those periods. So there's really nothing special about 2013. It was simply that the university had an administrator who decided, let's see what the reality is. That's what happened.
Yeah, I would love to see the test. I would love to see the test and validate the validity and the reliability of that instrument that is being used. Because if you are giving a test where 25, all of the candidates for that test don't pass that test, obviously there must be some issue with the instrument that is being used. But that's another thing that we can discuss on another time. Because again, like I said, they still use the test they will use it for entrance purposes, but they erroneously call it entrance and placement exam, which I've been advocating for years now for the university to change the name of that test. I think it's an entrance exam. It's not an entrance and placement exam. So that's something we need to go to. Look, I heard and saw somebody mention, and another quick thing I wanted to make a point about is that I think what Mr. Saya, who's talked about $1 million in the budget in 2016 for local carpenters to produce text, and it was taken up, I think is going back in. The president has just instructed that local carpenters should be used to produce, 100,000 chairs? And I'm hearing that he's going to expand that number. And moving forward, that will become a paragon that will continue to revisit that. I was touched by also the issue about overage students. You know, I hear a lot about that, especially when we have these Westerners going to Liberia to look at some of the challenges we have. Again, I don't see that as a problem. I see it as an opportunity for our education system to fix. The most important thing is that children are going to school. The United Nations statistics have it that about 20% of school-age children are not in school. So I think the Ministry of Education has done something. It has developed what they call accelerated literacy curriculum, which can be used to assist those students. And then it comes back again to the schools. What are the people who run these schools are doing? Like, for example, on a daily basis, I have to engage that issue. Just about 2 weeks ago, I was engaging an issue about a child who is, I think, 10 years old in K2. Now, the principal is telling me that the child doesn't know anything, so the child should stay in K2. Now, trust me, 10 years old in K2, what do we teach in K2? A 10-year-old child can learn the things that are being taught in K2 in a month or two, if provided the opportunity to do it. So that 10-year-old child doesn't necessarily have to sit in there. That's what we talk about creativity and innovation in the whole education system. We need a new generation of leaders who will use best practices in education to be able to address some of those issues. So I don't see them as problems. I see them as an opportunity for us to demonstrate our better understanding of education. Look, the Liberian education system has a lot of opportunities, and government alone cannot fix it. It behooves all of us with our ideas to be able to come together and work together and see how we can fix it. I will encourage educators in Liberia, educators here, to begin thinking about convening a national educational conference, wherein we will, outside of government, discuss these issues and find proposed solution to it and hand them over to government, and then watch and see what government is going to do. Let me stop here, but I still believe that Liberians are smart. Our kids are highly capable. I go to Liberia every year, and the kids that I see, They don't resemble the kids who are 25,000 of them who are failing the University of Liberia entrance. That's why I don't really value the result of that entrance. I don't think the instrument used was valid. I think we need to investigate the University of Liberia. I think we need to look at the tests that they are administering. If those students are passing the WAS exam in a higher percentage, and they are flunking the University of Liberia entrance exam, there are concerns and issues over there. And those issues have to be investigated. It shouldn't be disparaging of the young people. I think we need to sit down and begin to look at those things and discuss them.
Thank you, Mr. Zawulo. Our time is fast spent, and so we will be winding this down. This has been a very important and fruitful discussion. So we'll go around the room for our closing comments. I know we've covered a lot of grounds. And just see, and Mr. Kanwa, I see that you are having some technical difficulty. Thank you for your resilience, still hanging in there. So I want to start with you for your closing comments. And always we like to see that Mr. Zawulo kept stressing the opportunities. We want to also close with, the way forward. What does it look like? The light at the end of the tunnel. How can these problems be addressed? Your own recommendation.
Thank you, Dennis. I want to recommend that stakeholders be serious about the situation of our educational system in our country. While it is true that there are challenges, but I believe that if we all are serious in combating those challenges one way or the other, one at a time, we will overcome them. And so I want to recommend this, that the government will take cue, like somebody was talking, the issue of supervision. While it is true that the facilities may not be, but if there is constant supervision, I think those that are on the ground will do the right thing. And so I want to recommend that as we move forward, those of us who find ourselves in the private sector, we are helping the government, and let the government itself try to do the right thing so that the system will be better. This is my recommendation.
Thank you so much. Prof. Cindy. Let's go to Jackie. Prof. Cindy, as you get ready. Jackie?
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I just have a closing comment. I want to join Professor Zawulo to fully agree that we have some of the best brains and some of the best potentials in Liberia, and we need to overhaul our system to facilitate how those students can be best utilized, give them an environment where they can thrive. And I think they really, really are able. But we are not going to do that with the quality of teachers and teaching that we currently have in the school systems. That needs to be completely overhauled. And we can talk, again, going back to curriculum and applications. We can talk about infrastructure. We can talk about school environment, learning environment. I also would encourage the government steps beyond some of the lip service and really give concrete attention to education, because education is the bedrock of any nation. There's nobody in government who did not get educated. There's nobody in any profession who did not get educated. So if we have to take education for what it is, it has to be placed on the front burner. And we should stop giving lip service and actually give it the support it needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie?
Well, I jotted down some things from the comments. Okay, so we know that we always say that, we were educated in Liberia. We may have gotten higher degrees outside, but we're educated in Liberia, and it was primary education mostly that made us hold our own when we got here. So about bridge, I've written about bridge. I've condemned it when Minister Werner was outsourcing our school education. Even the United Nations was shocked about that. So I already wrote about bridge because I thought that Werner was just, abdicating his responsibility. I think that that we do need a national service. I mean, Ghana has it, Zambia has it, and when the kids come, they cannot get their degrees. I mean, their transcript unless they do a national service. It also builds patriotism. Zambia sends their teachers to rural areas, and those teachers don't have to pay tuition when they're in school because they have signed a contract that they will go and work. So there's nothing wrong with moving away from this dependent syndrome and saying that, look, if you want something, you have to work for it. Even here with my kids when they were little, there was a Saturday school for science and math. So we're talking about the youth bulge that's coming, right? So if you need doctors, you also need nurses, you need laboratory technicians, you need the lesser rung, those that will support the doctors and the geologists and things. So we have to invest in STEM, right? Even the African Development Bank now has an African University of Science and Technology in South Africa, in Nigeria. So we need these skills. We have to tie the curriculum to the skills that we need. Not everybody can do political science. Not everybody can do accounting and sociology. We need to be able to do other things, and we need to encourage our girls also to go into math and science. Now, again, I would just say that it all comes down also to political will. The government is doing well, but the money that you're putting into the education budget must be efficient use of the money. We have over 2,000 ghost teachers. Who are those teachers? Why are they there? Now, if you talk about the budget, the 2021 budget for the education ministry is 41 million. That's besides the donor money. Just the budget for the education ministry is 41 million, right? So 1 million compared to what? 44 million for the legislature, 10 million for the minister of state, 14 million for the minister for the ministry of foreign affairs. Huh? Excuse me?
Go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that we need to increase the budget, but not only increase the budget, we also need to be able to say this increase, this is where it's going to go. And it's going to go in STEM, it's going to go in curriculum, it's going to go in teaching, training the teachers and professional development. I agree with Prof. Zawolo that we should have a conference. Too often, what happens is that they will say, oh, let's have a conference. And then when you look, oh, the conference was last week. You don't call a conference in 1 week and then have the conference. You can set it for like 2 months and then you plan what should be in that conference. So many times I've heard of a conference and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is interesting. Only to hear 2 days later, oh, the conference was held. No, all the stakeholders should be involved and we must stop abdicating our responsibility. Right? The donor partners will not educate our children. We are the ones that will educate our children. So this public-private partnership, it will work, but we cannot give them the bulk of the work to do. We have to do it, and we have a long way to go. Yeah.
Prof. Zawolo.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, Dennis. Thank you very much today. I think the discussion here today was robust. I think we learned a lot. Again, I just want to thank all of my colleagues. Look, like Ms. Sai just said, the government of Liberia is doing a whole lot. Unlike previous government that saw the education system as a mess and did nothing, this government has done so much. They've put into place free tertiary education. They are working on making free education, education totally free in the country from K to 12. There is a $47 million IRISE grant right now that the Ministry of Education is implementing that you see tremendous improvement in some of the things and services that the Ministry of Education provides. So I think we as educators need to continue to engage and talk and see how we can together offer solutions. Most of the time I'm more interested in ideas that we're resolving. And that's what took me into this whole business of opening school in Liberia. because I got tired of talking. I wanted to implement. I have to get up 3:30 a.m. every morning to be able to talk to my two teams in Kakata and Monrovia. It's not an easy thing for me. It's not something that I want to do or so, but I need to do it because it's about the future of our country. And if we don't do that, then we are all doomed. So again, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be on the show. I think we provided the audience out there a lot of information. I think they can take it now and digest it. And I will take the lead in seeing how we can work together to call for this educational conference. I will make contact with each one of you to see how we can decide where this conference will be, whether we should have it here in the States or whether we should have it in Liberia. My hope is that we can go to Liberia and have it there with the people on the ground. So thank you very much again. We need that. We need to do something for our country. Otherwise, we are doomed.
And on that note, we will want to re-invite you in a month's time that we can have this discussion again. Today was just the introduction. I know we cover a lot of ground, but in our next conversation, we'll zero in on some of the key areas that we need to zero in on so that we can, if possible, make that needed impact on our school system. Okay, it is incumbent upon all of us to do something to change the narrative. All of us were educated in Liberia. Like Toby and I, we have to cross 4 creeks to get to school in the morning. And his village was beyond my village, but they were always the first to pass. When they tell us that Toby and the group have passed, we better start running. So it's been a long way coming here and educated in Liberia, and we have this education. It is incumbent upon all of us to give back, to do whatever we can. If there are roadblocks, we find a way around it so that we can make that necessary impact and change the narrative. Thank you so much for coming and being part of this very, very engaging discussion. We can't thank you enough. To our viewers, we say thank you for watching. Even those who will watch later on YouTube and other social media platforms, please keep your dial set here at Focus on Liberia, where we always strive to educate, to elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Coming next on Focus on Liberia at 6 will be On Point. That's a political discussion, differences of opinion, where two guys go neck to neck, arguing the politics of the country. But education, as we say, is the key, and we must do the best we can to make that happen. We don't close our broadcast without our closing song that says, "We are all Liberians." Whether you were educated in Bapolu, in Kakata, or in Senye, we are all Liberians. Whether you had the right primary education or you reached, 6th grade before you actually did phonics, we are all Liberians. And we must do whatever it takes to make our country the glorious land of liberty by God's command. Until then, my name is Dennis Jai saying, God bless you. Good night. Good day.
Bye.
Thank you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.